This video is part of the Good Intentions Stitch Along series by Chrissy Crafts. Other videos are available in the series. Thanks for watching and happy stitching! It's time to do some flowers on our Good Intentions hoops. I've done one already, a rose, here. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's called the woven wheel stitch. There's some nice tips along the way as well. So choose a few shades for your flowers. I've chosen these 3 to start off with. See how I get on with them, see how they look. You can change as you go. Once you get a couple on there, you can decide I might want a much lighter pink, but we'll just see. Then this uses all 6 strands of floss this time, so I've just threaded my needle. The tip with this is to, if you can, find a needle that it's either called a tapestry needle or a ribbon embroidery needle. Any kind of needle that has a very wide eye. I just find it's much easier to thread. Excuse my winter cold weather hands and less than beautiful manicure. I'll explain this later. Anyway, so that, and I also have, it's quite a short needle, and you'll see why I prefer using a short needle when I'm doing the woven wheel. If you just have regular needles, that's fine too. It'll still work. I've just, after doing a bunch of these over the years, I find that these are my favorite needles to work with for that. So I threaded it with all the 6 strands, not at the back. So I'm going to do this next rose up here in the white area so you could see it quite clearly. I'll probably do some more down here as well, but I want to make sure you can see. You're going to make 5 spokes of a wheel. That's why it's called a woven wheel. So almost like a star. I'm going to bring the needle up and bring it down again. And that'll be your first spoke. Then you're going to come around and make another one. You're going to have 5 altogether, like a star, just 5 straight lines all meeting in the center. And the reason I have this is because for some reason I find it really challenging to get this stitch length right, and I always end up with spokes that are different lengths, which does not work when you're trying to make a nice even rose. So I find there was something on Pinterest a few years ago of marking your thumb to make stitches for, I think, a buttonhole stitch, to make them all the same length. And I just thought, well, that'll work for this as well. So I just kind of measure, there's the center roughly. It's not exact, but it gives me a guidance. So many times with other stitches, I'm able to just eyeball it just fine, but this I find really tricky. Again, I measure from roughly from the middle. I suppose you could get out a ruler and measure a few millimeters each time and save your pen marking your skin, but hey, why be normal? They're roughly even. It's not perfect because I'm filming, the camera is above and I'm working from an angle, so it's a bit tricky to see. But from here, now what you do is you bring up your needle in, not in the middle of everything, but in the very deepest part of the V between 2 stitches. Doesn't matter which one you start with. Pull your thread up. Then you're going to weave around this wheel. So I'll go over this first spoke and under, see if I could do this so you can see it, under the second one. So when it's nice to have a shorter needle, so get under there quickly. Don't pull too tight, but just do it snug. Then over this, under this, over this, under this. You're weaving your thread around. So So I go over that spoke, under that one, over this one, under that one. You remember this is the one we went over the first time. Now we're going under it. So it'll alternate each time you go around. Over this one, under the next one. The idea is you'll keep going till you've covered up all the spokes. And as it builds up, if it overlaps the previous round, that's fine. It'll look more natural that way. You know, you don't want them all, well, I don't prefer them all lying just flat and uniform because it'll just look like some sort of wheel. It'll look less rosy and more stylized circle or something like that. This is also really fun to work with variegated thread because then you, in addition to having the texture, you have the colors changing as you go. There's some really pretty variegated threads out there and it makes it add some interest to it. Be careful as you go that you don't snag things like I just did. Slow down. I feel like I'm pretty much finished. I'll go over that one. When you're finished, all you do is take your needle and just kind of poke it through the fabric tucked underneath one of the spokes. There you go. And that's a rose. One other tip I have before I leave you to stitch is I still have some floss left because this does use a lot more embroidery thread than normal stitching will do, so you might have some left over. I'm going to want to make more roses in this color, just like I did with this color. So instead of cutting it and having to rethread later on, what I do is just take it off to the side near where I finished it. I just poke it through. You could do this on the hoop as well. It doesn't have to be off to the side here. Just pull it through. And that way you have the threads ready to go. And you just pull them back underneath, thread the needle, and then you can start off again. Because I might decide actually I want to add some more, make it a fuller rose, really bunch up those petals, or I want one small one next to it, or some French knots or whatever. So it just keeps it handy until you're absolutely sure. It's a time saver. So here are your woven wheel roses. I'm very quickly going to add in a very brief look at what it's like to do this same type of rose with silk ribbon, like I did with the Slow Down. It's the same idea of just weaving in and out. So I'll pop that in at the very end. But if you don't have ribbon or aren't interested, then I'll say goodbye now and go and stitch some flowers. And remember to share your progress with the hashtag GoodIntentionsSAL. I am so enjoying seeing everyone's progress. Thank you so much for joining in. I'll see you again soon. Bye. I've prepped a little hoop with some linen just to do a silk ribbon rose for you. I've used 2 strands of embroidery thread. Now normally you do it to match your ribbon. This sort of matches it, but I've made sure I've gone darker with it so you could see it very clearly with the tutorial, but normally I'd probably do something paler. I have some silk ribbon for embroidery in a variegated rosy shade. I think it's the Antique Rose. I got this at the Knitting and Stitching show in London. This is Maytime Heirlooms. They're Australian. It's tricky to find silk ribbon in England right now, so you can always check out Maytime Heirlooms, Google it. So it's the same as the other woven wheel, just a little bit more careful with the ribbon. Come up in the V. Then I'm going to go over that one and under this one. Just have to work a bit more carefully with silk ribbon because you see I want it to flip over. You don't want it to twist too much with your roses. And you leave it quite loose. It's gone under. I'm going over that one, under this one. Kind of keep checking that it's not twisting too much over that, under this. I like it because even if it twists and curls a bit, it looks very much like rose petals and how they fold over each other. It's so beautiful. That's how I did all of these. They all turn out differently every time.